I feel like I can't see you. You know, I feel like I can see you. I can see you. But like, usually I feel like my eyes very naturally, like I feel like
drawn
I'm like.
to me.
Yes.
But today you're not quite as alluring.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, what happened there?
Can you hear us still, or is it too quiet?
Just like a lot quieter, which is fine.
In a good way?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I could really hear myself. You know what I mean? Because it's so faint.
So it is faint.
Yeah, but it's not bad. It's not faint.
I should turn up the volume?
I don't know. What's the right way to do it?
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
But are you straining to hear?
No, not at all. It's just that before my voice was very loud in my ear and I was like, oh, it's so like interesting to hear it. And then we like turned it down. And I was like,
Right. Can you please wrap one wire at the very least behind your back?
You actually can't see because it's black.
Okay.
But do you guys understand that I am a chaotic person who eschews all order?
And who's also organizing these podcast episodes?
I can handle one thing at a time, but well, sort of. Hi.
Hello. Welcome to Queer Cinema Catchup. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
And this is the podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens. Today, we're talking about the 2025 movie Companion.
Which we just saw last night at the Universal Movie Theater.
Yes. So official. But you didn't mention AMC.
It was at AMC. I don't necessarily, this is kind of blasphemous. I did appreciate last night, everyone applauded for Nicole during her infamous AMC ad. I wonder how much longer that's really going to last for.
I mean, it's been like 3 years.
But I mean, outside of LA, I don't think people do that. You know what I mean? It's like eventually
It'll end.
It's going to end. And I just was wondering when.
I mean, this planet's not going to be around forever, you know?
Well, I do
Everything
know that.
has to come to an end at some point.
That I do know.
But in terms of like the kitschiness of it,
I
and
mean,
the charm is what you are referring to. You're
Yeah.
annoyed that people are still clapping.
No.
Oh.
I'm thrilled. I had a anticipatory feeling of sadness knowing that it was going to go away, especially because in other states, I don't know if that's very common. Like, I think people just don't go to the movies that often. So they're just like, oh, there's Nav and Nicole Kidman.
Wow.
I feel like I just like said all those words like in a jumble at once.
We have had a day of eating pho.
Yeah.
We got banh mi sandwiches because we really wanted.
We decided it was a good idea.
We're bigger than our stomachs.
To order. Each was ordered a giant bowl of pho. We ordered edamame. And then we're like, and we also want a banh mi sandwich to split. And then they brought out 3 meals.
And the pho, yours was a large pho. Mine was massive. It was like family size. I ate all of it still. And then by the time we got to the banh mi's, we were both too full. And then I was like, how about we get dessert?
And then we went and got ice cream.
We also started out the dinner being like, or
it wasn't dinner, it was lunch.
We started out the lunch and I was like, I really want to go somewhere where they like have like 32-ounce steaks and where you eat the whole thing, you get it for free. And I was like, you could totally do that. And then we have this huge feast and
we
tapped
bailed.
out. Then we went to Handles, walked up and down the street.
Yeah, we went to Wacko's bookstore.
Wacko's.
Never been there. Pretty cool.
I go in there though. I like the idea of it, but then I always get kind of
weirded out
and want to leave.
It sort of smells
it's
like,
stinky.
but it's like a soap smell, but not, but
like
it doesn't
a dirty
seem,
soap.
Yeah, it doesn't seem good. Now, not knocking Wacko's.
And she's not knocking soap. Allison, famously anti-Dove soap.
No. Don't please put me in an ad. Your beautiful ads that celebrate all kinds of women.
Even the chaotic ones.
Even the chaotic
with wires
ones.
wrapped around their body.
Hey, that's kind of a good segue. A woman with wires wrapped around her body. Because this movie has a big twist.
But do you want to read what the synopsis is first?
Sure.
And then I need to stop using the word curious. I keep saying that. I'm interested.
That's a very therapeutic thing to say,
find
because it contains no judgment.
Curiosity.
I'm curious why you would think that instead of like, why would you think that?
But curiosity, you are kind of like acknowledging
That you don't understand.
that you don't understand. And in a way to say curious is kind of like, what a strange way of thinking. Elaborate. Like you're interested,
but
there might be a hint of judgment in curiosity.
I don't know. There's definitely a hint of judgment in my You know, it's so you are actually really good at this. You have a talent. You notice things that people do that are like
being
repetitive.
Really judgmental. I like finding people's like character traits or like mannerisms. I'm really interested in people's mannerisms.
You're really good at that.
I was making fun of a friend earlier today about their mannerisms.
That's why I was thinking about it. I was like, you are so... Because I never would have known I did that. Like, when first time you brought it up, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't do that.
I didn't notice it for the longest time, and now I can't not notice it.
We lived together for a long time.
And then I read this up on the podcast before, too. You'll also do all right. But you do like an English accent almost.
I do that. What was I going to say about
mannerisms?
It was so good, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, well.
Let me increase your tablet that has your memory. You're now at 100%.
Wait, okay. Oh, no. Okay, I'll talk to you about it later. But in the podcast, it kind of is jumping the gun, so I'll wait. Okay.
Jumping the gun, you say. Elaborate.
I was going to say how much I loved Jack Quaid's nickname for Sophie Thatcher. Did you think about the nickname at all? It was great. Okay. So Companion is a 2025.
Wait, try to do it in a way where you... Okay. By the way, movie podcast, TV podcast, anything talking about entertainment where you're like reviewing it.
Yeah.
Expect spoilers. And I think everyone knows that, but just
of course.
in case. I'm interested to discover if what you're about to unleash on us has the spoiler in it or not.
Good question. Let's find out.
Okay.
Companion is a 2025 American science fiction horror comedy film starring Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid as a couple on a weekend getaway with friends at a remote cabin, which unravels into chaos after revelation that one of the guests is a companion robot. So it kind of spoiled it, but kind of didn't.
But also lied.
Which they cannot do. The robots cannot.
Unless you change the setting.
Well, it actually seemed like they could never lie because the only thing she could do was change her setting to German. And then at the very end, okay, yeah, you're right. Eventually. So we kind of just spoiled it for you.
The first trailer for this movie didn't give it away. It was just Sophie Thatcher sitting at a table across from Jack Quaid. And she has her hand over like a candle and she's like tearing up.
What did you think when you saw that?
I didn't know.
And there was a bunch of images of her. I think I thought it was like...
I thought she was like possessed or something.
Yeah. I thought it was like a crazy torture something movie.
You thought it was going to be like a 50 Shades of Grey situation?
I don't know. I thought it was going to be like The Invisible Man kind of. You know, in the beginning of that movie, she escapes her boyfriend who's like...
Oh, like someone was holding up her hand?
Like it was abusive. Yeah, something, or he was coercing her. And then I thought, I don't know. But I did not expect the twist that
was revealed in the next trailer.
Yes.
That I did not see.
I did see, which I was actually disappointed by because I saw the trailer and it reveals that Sophie Thatcher is a companion robot. And I was like, oh, that makes the first trailer make so much more sense, but that's kind of a shame to know that going into the movie. And it was very obvious. Like, I was like, oh, I would have definitely guessed this because it just seemed really obvious to me, but I don't know if that was your experience.
So the movie starts... As most movies do, it starts on a shot with Sophie Thatcher in a grocery store, a straight homage from the Stepford Wives. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I took it more as like isn't this interesting seeing like, oh, how will she have to like conform to the ideals that a man wants in a relationship?
Right.
I took it more metaphorically, but it was much more of a literal homage.
Yes, I did notice the Stepford wife kind of illusion as well. And then there were just a couple other things in the beginning, like she's sleeping in the car and he goes, oh, you've been sleeping for a while. And it was just very clear, oh, you mean like she's been turned off is like kind of my interpretation of that scene. Like when, oh, wake up, sleepyhead, when they're driving there. And then she like thanks the car, which is a self-driving car, which isn't really her being aware of herself being aware of robot, but just is like a little hat tip to robots, you know what I mean? And then
I was distracted because, which makes sense now, he was like he was holding his cell phone in the car. Oh. And I was like, oh, it must be a self-driving car. He can just be like on his phone.
But he was monitoring
not
her.
Connecting that he was like turning or monitoring her. Because the way that Jack Quaid is able to control Sophie Thatcher's character, Iris.
Yeah.
Is all he has to say is like, wake up, Iris, or go to sleep, Iris.
Yeah.
Only though if he's in a certain range of where she is.
Exactly.
But then he also can control her on her tablet, down to the way she speaks, what languages, her
how
intelligence.
Smart she is,
and
which is pretty funny.
So I went to this movie not knowing that she was a companion robot.
Right.
And it wasn't so noticeable to me. And then I was sitting next to my friend and we're like maybe like 10, 15 minutes into this movie. And the guy, I forget his name. What's that beautiful man's name?
Oh, Lucas Gage.
Lucas Gage. My friend like leans over to me and he's like, and I couldn't hear him that well. And he's like, so he's, and I thought he said homo. He's a homo too. And I was like, I was like, yes.
Yes, he's in
I was like, what? And I was like, surely I didn't hear you right. He's a homo too. I'm like, what? And he's like, and then he spoke up a little louder. He's like, he's a robot too. And I was like, what? And then he's like, and then my friend was like, you knew that, right? I was like, no. And then he's like, oh. And they turned around. And then it all made sense.
Well, this makes sense to me too, because of Joe. Then when it's revealed that Sophie, so basically what ends up happening in the beginning of this movie, Iris and Josh, Sophie and Jack Quaid are going to visit their friends in this big giant house. It's a young woman married to an older man whose house it is, who has a bunch of money, seems like a sleazy guy, and then a gay couple as well. And they're all buds, and Sophie feels really uncomfortable. She knows that the other woman in the house, played by Megan Surrey, whose character's name was Kat, doesn't like her. She feels on edge, and Josh is telling her to be normal. But then the next day, they all drink, they have fun. There's a dancing scene, and then she does say something weird about like love and meeting someone for the first time. And how do you know? It's clear she's very love obsessed, and maybe seems a little like old fashioned or
and she's
naive.
She's dressed up like a 60s
pinup kind of girl, housewifey kind of person. And so then the next day, Josh is hungover, and he's like, just go down to the lake by yourself, and I'll see you later. And then she goes down there, and when she's walking toward the lake, she notices in her pocket there's a pocket knife. And then she goes and looks at the water, and then the older man whose house it is, Sergey, comes out, and he hits on her.
Who's Russian.
And
is drinking Russian vodka.
At 10 in the morning, and then he tries to like come on to her. She grabs I see why you grabbed the bottle. I was like, why is that detail relevant, Joe?
And also, I just thought it was like funny that the Russian man has Russian vodka. I wouldn't say so much as like comes onto her as he like forcibly grabs her and initiates.
Yes. And then she grabs the bottle and hits him over the head. And this is told in interlocking scenes because we don't know this yet. She comes into the house covered in blood, being like I had to do what I had to.
Her face and neck. Her neck was just dark red blood. It was really disturbing.
It was super creepy.
But it was really well done.
And then they're freaking out, the friends, and then they intersperse the scene as she's explaining what she did, and you realize
And did you already right there connect where the rest of the story was going? Like why that happened?
I mean, I did think when I knew she was a robot, or I suspected, I didn't know if it was robot, like I knew she was a machine of some kind, and I knew that the knife was probably planted, so I didn't necessarily connect it to like a murder. It was a murder. They basically decide, Jack and Kat decide they want to try and murder Sergey because, well, Jack thinks he's a mobster and Kat doesn't like him and he's got a bunch of money that they want to steal. And they have the brilliant idea to use the robot by increasing her aggression, hacking into it, and changing the provision that they can't harm themselves or other people.
They called it jailbreaking the robot. You would used to do with like an iPhone where you could jailbreak it. It's like you would jailbreak it so they could change settings outside of what a typical consumer could change. And then which if they know how to jailbreak a robot, I think the police would connect that they jailbroke the robot. But their plan was like, a robot is never allowed to hurt a human, and she went rogue.
And they would like change all her settings back before they got there. So that was and they were going to have their friends there as witnesses to corroborate the story.
And it's like a silly plot, and their plan's really dumb, but I don't really care.
No, I don't think
you care either because it's such a unique story.
It's definitely a good setup.
And I just like love movies that build upon an audience's knowledge of past movies. Like we have Stepford Wives, we have like these Ex Machina, these like situations where like a robot goes rogue, but then they initially in the marketing for this movie, they hid the fact that she's a companion robot. You don't really.
Yeah, which I wish they had done that. I just think that would have made it like more exciting, but that's fair.
Yeah.
But wasn't there a question that you asked me that kind of made me describe the scene? I had a reason for telling all that setup, and it's something to do with, I don't know.
Well, she was describing being covered in blood.
It was before that, but it's not really a big deal.
No.
We're just
kind of going through the plot.
Yeah. Well, no, there was a question. It doesn't matter. It's really not a big deal. But that's kind of the setup. I know I told it because then so then you kind of, the moment the audience who hasn't seen the trailer is supposed to learn that she's a robot, is she's covered in blood. They're trying to figure out what happened. She's starting to freak out, saying she had to do it. She was being harmed, and then if he harmed her, she would never get to see Jack again, and that would just devastate her, be the end of her life. And then he goes, Iris, go to sleep, and the robot falls asleep because
her eyes go white.
Yeah, and she turns off. That's what happened. Maybe I'm a robot. Look at all my wires.
So that would be a really good reveal if you hadn't seen the spoiler.
And that's when you
or
leaned
if your
over.
friend's sitting next to you to spoil it 5 minutes before it happened.
Then Joe leaned over to me and goes, "Did you know that?" And I was like, yes.
Yes.
But then I just didn't know if you asked me that question because you didn't know or because you wanted to know if I didn't know. I was not sure.
I think, well, both.
Both.
Because I didn't know. And then I didn't realize that the trailer had revealed it.
And then
Which, knowing that fact, did it make you less excited for the movie?
No, it made me excited. I just wish I didn't know because I love a good, shocking reveal. And it's fun to try and get, if you don't know. And then it's fun when you pick up on it on your own and you guess. And it's also fun when you're shocked. So I like that as a viewing.
And then there was one other
reveal.
Big breadcrumb before it's revealed that Iris is a android. Is she's like telling the weather in a slightly robotic way.
And he goes, never gets old. Which to me, because she was standing outside when he asked her, so even though it's a very specific forecast she gave, it wasn't so strange,
Well, it's like something that you read off your iPhone,
Yeah,
it kind of sound like that.
Exactly.
But the thing of it is like Iris didn't realize that she was a robot.
No.
And then as the movie goes on, for some reason, okay, so it's revealed that it was Josh's plan the whole time with Kat to get this companion to eventually pin the murder on or manipulate the situation to make her murder that man for the money. And it's an awful thing to do. Because
they set him up as like a really bad dude. And they suggested, he has all this money. Maybe he's really bad. He's been doing bad things to get the money. But then we find out he's in the sod business.
Well, yeah. But I was talking about Josh.
Oh, yeah.
What takes it to a new level is you're like, okay, because this first teaser where they're sitting across the table, I thought Josh, from the very beginning, tricked Iris to come out here, and it was always his plan to torture her.
Yeah.
But then this whole thing, it's she was just a pawn, which is horrible, but she's just a pawn in his plan.
Plan for money.
But then all of Josh's actions going forward are so awful and cruel for no reason. That's he has to die at the end.
I mean, definitely. People clapped and that he does die, spoiler, which was...
It was one of the more gruesome deaths I've ever seen.
It involved...
It was smart.
If you are fancy and you own one of those robotic wine openers that you put on top of the wine and you push a button in the corkscrew, or what's that called? The
corkscrew.
What's that called? The thing that opens it.
Oh.
The wine opener. The robotic wine opener opens it up, and it's like a very heavy duty cylinder item. And she, in the very last frame, is like, "Go to sleep, Josh," and then he's choking her, and then
slams
she slams
the
it in
wine
his
bottle.
head. I was like, "Ooh, I'm not gonna watch this." Part.
And then the torture of it is she presses the button.
Yeah.
So it's already starting to kill him, and then it drills into his brain. It
was pretty gruesome.
Which fitting for what he had done to Iris.
Yes.
Just mere scenes before.
It was a very bloody film. There was a lot of death, and every character except for Iris was pretty terrible.
Except, I mean, he was terrible, but Eli,
he could have been redeemed.
So
this is where I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. I don't know how it was certainly funny. I don't know how thought provoking it really was. Even the feminism angle of the film felt. I mean, Josh is such a cartoon villain in a way, and such a classic, thinks he's a good guy, but is a shitty guy kind of a trope. But I was like, I've seen this dynamic before, and it didn't really feel fresh to me. You know what I mean? And so
it was kind of an extreme of in White Lotus
Yes.
season 1, the mother-son relationship where the mother is really defensive about her son, her white heterosexual son. Were you thinking of someone else? Well, there's also that other guy.
That's who he reminds me of. The pineapple sweet man. Who were you talking about?
I was talking about the kind of the odd guy who he's Sydney Sweeney's
little brother.
Aw. And don't you remember Sydney Sweeney's complaining about him to the mom, and the mom's like, he has it really hard. You don't understand. Everyone wants to fight for other people with more diversity, and he gets left out of the conversation. It was kind of like that, where Jack Quaid, it's kind of everything's handed to me. He's like, I deserve to live somewhere not. I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And I couldn't.
So
and then I gasped at this part where Josh is explain. Josh, played by Jack Quaid, he's complaining, basically being very how he's entitled to the best is entitled to be and deserves to be wealthy. So he's like listing off these reasons, like how shitty his life is, which it's not that shitty. What I gasped is he's like, and I couldn't even afford to buy you. I had to rent you.
Yeah.
The fact that he was like renting a companion robot, I gasped.
And I was like more offended by the line because like they really take care. And so Thatcher does a good job of imbuing the robot with humanity. So he says to her when he's making the speech about everything he doesn't have that he should have, he's like, and I even have to get a robot girlfriend. Like he's like judging himself, which I mean, yeah, that's pretty embarrassing, but you don't tell your like robot girlfriend that, that's kind of cruel and hurtful. So that line was the one that made me go, ugh. But yeah, he just kind of sucked.
But then, like, how did he keep the facade? I guess how to keep the whole facade up before they even got to the house? And I guess it's the idea that
I think he genuinely loved the version of her that was
because she's
subservient to him, and he just didn't think twice about using her as a tool. And that is his fatal flaw, is that he thinks that no matter what he does, she'll always be that way. And so he turns her back on after they've turned her off in the very first scene when she's killed Sergey. And he wants to tell her the truth. Like, you're a robot and this is what's going on. I'm going to reset you. Don't worry. And she's like, what do you mean I'm a robot? Like, she can't process it. And they do some funny dialogue about processing and all of that. But
she's tied up also.
Yeah, he thinks that no matter what happens, she's just going to be a slavish companion.
And so
this is something that actually triggers in her a survival instinct, which is a cool...
She's a robot, but she has like human... They programmed her with human emotions, which is... tragic for this character. She's tied up, and then as Josh has explained this all to Iris, which he didn't have to do, but he did, Kat comes and wants to talk to Josh privately, and instead of having Iris go to sleep, Josh allows her to be awake, which is then her survival instinct kicks in. She finds the knife that's under the couch. She's able to free herself. She punches Josh in the throat. She runs off into the woods.
She does demonstrate she still cares about him because she says to Kat, ice him if you notice that he's like developing like shortness of breath or whatever, take him to the hospital. So she does care.
Yeah. So in this house, there's Sergey, who's now died. There is Josh and Iris. There is Kat. And then there's Eli, and then Lucas Gage's character.
Lucas Gage is named Patrick. Eli is named Harvey Gillen. Bless you.
So all these characters, and then from my own, I'm just gonna say it, from my own like judgmental viewing experience, when I saw that Lucas Gage's character was with Eli, it was like, I would never think Lucas Gage would go for this. Basically,
can you be more descriptive as to why, or do you not want to be?
He's just like
Lucas is like very attractive. Is that what you mean? And conventionally so, would you say? And then Eli's character, I mean, I thought he was very handsome, but like I understand what you're like. There seems to be a mismatch, and I noticed that as well. Like, because basically, we're getting to why this is important. Like, we're not just saying this for no reason. But basically, there's a scene before we realize Iris is a robot, where she's talking about how she first met Jack, and it's like this idyllic, love obsessed story about a grocery store, and then we have Lucas's character Patrick telling the story of how he met Eli, and it's just like really silly. It's like, it's not idyllic, I would say. It's very like goofy. Like, they were at a Halloween party and he was standing on the tail of a dinosaur, and the dinosaur was Eli, the most beautiful man he's ever seen. It was like a kind of a silly story. But
when Lucas tells it, you don't see it. Whereas at the beginning of the movie, you see Sophie's story of how she met Josh, and it is kind of, that one's silly also because it's like Josh grabs like an orange and like all of the oranges fall, and they both are like laughing, and then Sophie's like,
it's like so perfect and
hilarious, like meet cute, like something's off about it. And then so when they first get to the cabin and all the friends are getting introduced, like Eli comes out first, and he's kind of wearing like an overshirt like I'm wearing, but then he's also wearing like a
graphic
he's just like a little more flamboyant and like kind of sassy to me. He's like he's like very like sassy, and you're kind of like meeting all the friends, and then like Lucas Gage pops out, and I didn't know is it Lucas Gage or Lucas Cage?
Gage.
Lucas Gage.
Lucas gay.
He's homo too, right? Lucas Gage pops out. I was like, I didn't know this. He was in this movie, And then he kisses Eli on the cheek. I was like, why am I not the kind of person that like, just like kisses my friends on the cheek? Like, I wish I could be more like metropolitan like that. And then the dinner scene happens. I was like, oh, they're together.
So I had a different,
which speaks to my own
like, yeah,
biases.
But they're doing that. This is one of the problems. I did like the movie, but I do have some quibbles with it. And this is one of my quibbles. So I similarly had a bias, maybe not as strong, because when Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher entered the house, it's Kat in the kitchen and Lucas Gage is cooking. So I assumed that they were dating.
I also thought.
And then Sergey, the old man, comes in like, oh, Sergey's here. And I'm like, who the fuck is that old guy? I was like, what is he doing here? Like, it did not occur to me that Kat might be dating Sergey.
Yeah.
And then I thought that Harvey's character, Eli, was playing like the gay best friend. Like, and they're playing with what our minds go to, like these tropes, which is smart. And then I know for a fact that the script wants you to kind of be like, why are Patrick and Eli dating? They seem kind of mismatched in terms of levels of attractiveness by a conventional standard or whatever. And then, of course, it's intentional because after Sophie's robot escapes, the plan's kind of revealed. That we see all the money. They're talking about it. And then Eli finds out and he's like, what the hell? We need to... So I was just brought here to be like a stooge who was like your witness, and I was never going to know the truth. And they're like, hey, no, it's okay. Like, if you help us get the robot back, like, you can be cut into this. So, we can split the money 3 ways. And he was like, no, 4 ways. And then they're like, dude, that's not fair. It's got to be 3 ways. And then Eli turns around and tells Patrick to go to sleep because Patrick is a robot as well. And he's like, please don't reveal that my boyfriend's a robot to my boyfriend. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, of course, he's a robot too. How could we have not seen it? And my problem with all of this is it's just so... It's like playing to the meanest, basest impulses of the audience to trick them, and it's just making these characters seem so, I don't know,
shallow.
Like it makes me feel like bad as a viewer. I'm like, wow, I can't believe my assumptions were right that these 2 people would never be together. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Something about that made me feel icky.
I agree. Like I wish I didn't think that way. But then does it also speak to the filmmakers that they knew that we'd feed into that?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's not a bad. It was well executed. I just don't personally like that view of humanity. I just wish, yeah. And then they're in the scene, all of them.
And then, when I did find out that Lucas's character, for some reason is Lopez, I can't remember their character. Patrick. When I found out that Patrick and Eli are dating, I leaned over to you. I don't know if you get to hear it. I was like, it's gay.
You did that, yeah. I was like, oh, good, perfect for the Queer Cinema Catchup. All right.
All right.
And I have more to say about that, about the queer element of the movie too, but we can save that for a little bit. But this scene really is where the movie kind of, like, I liked Sophie's character. Like, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, go. I want rah, female robot empowerment. I'm all about this. I can get behind this. But then you find out that Kat just kind of wanted to murder this man. And she later reveals that he wasn't even a mobster. He's a bad boyfriend and a shitty person, but she didn't need to be dating him. He had a wife. Like, I was like, what's going on here? And then Jack was like, yeah, I'll do it. I want some money. And then even Eli, who's like shocked by what's going on, instead of him being more like afraid and going along with this because these people are up to no good and have a killer robot, he's just kind of like, okay, yeah, like I'll take a cut of the money. I'm like, these people have no conscience and they suck.
I mean, as the future is quickly coming and technology's advancing and we're going forwards in some ways and backwards in others, is it unethical to have a robot as your companion without them technically being able to consent to being in a relationship with you?
I mean, I feel like there are movies like Her or Ex Machina that deal with that question in a way that
this movie's not trying to answer that
it's
question.
Like, we don't care.
This movie wants to be fun.
Yeah, and it is fun.
And it's really fun.
But I was like thinking about, it brought to mind the movie Bodies.
Okay, yeah.
And I kind of forget I know they're all together on vacation in a house, and then someone turns up dead and they don't know why. Is that the kind of concept? Like a Gen Z whodunit, but like a little bit zanier.
Yeah, one person dies and they don't know who did the murder, and they all end up killing each other.
And they all are like pretty terrible people too, but there's something about, like, I feel like I understood all of their motivations and who they were and why, and it was still funny. But this one, I'm like, these guys just suck.
Yeah, they conveniently, it was just to drive the plot forward. They just need to be awful people.
I don't like them. I was like, So that kind of took me out of it.
I could see that. Wow, yeah, I didn't think about bodies, but they are very similar. Whereas even though the bodies, people were like awful, you like they all had their like quirks and personalities. You just kind of understood why they sucked. They were
like,
fun.
oh, they're insufferable, but I do get their point of view. I hope I'm not ever like that, but I probably am sometimes. You know what I mean? It like was more like reflecting a mirror back on the audience. In this one, I was like, I definitely know I would never agree to murder someone with a robot. And then if I found out about it, I might go along with it because I was afraid, but I definitely would be looking for a way out and hoping to call the police ASAP.
Yeah.
So I just didn't relate.
No.
I didn't relate to these people.
Yeah, I don't know if they want you to relate, but I thought that it was more, I mean, it's told through Iris's story. So it's her point of view. And so she's out in the forest and the whole gang decides they need to murder, or they just need to
They want to get her back, switch her settings,
reset her.
and then, go forward with the plan of calling the cops about Sergey. Sergey, I don't know what his name is.
And then there's a moment, a really nice, so Iris also gets the ability, she gets the tablet that's Josh's phone that has all the controls of her settings. And there's a really cool moment where she's just like outside, like looking at all these like control settings. It's kind of like back in the iPhoto days when you could change your like the different.
I was like, ooh, I want to
make your face look different.
Her
She
eyes.
can change like her eye color. She can change the way like she speaks. Like it was really smart in that sense. And then there's like an intelligence button. She was at 40% intelligence.
She went, wow, Josh, which was a pretty funny line.
Yeah. But my question about that is like the movie starts out and this woman is like depressed.
Yeah, well, they kept being like
melancholy.
Don't be mopey at dinner.
She's suspicious. She has anxiety.
I guess if you didn't know you were a robot and someone was basically gaslighting you into thinking you were a real person who had a real past and a real history, it might provoke some anxiety.
But I've been to Japan twice. That was one of Iris's lines where all of her fake memories.
It was so sad to me because he's like, oh, those are just outlines of a memory.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's so...
But honestly, my memories are just outlines. And
are you
so far removed now.
You're crazy. They're all still up there. You can get deeper into them.
So they're out in the woods hunting for Iris, and Eli and Patrick are talking with each other.
They split up into two groups.
And doesn't Patrick like say like, come on, I know what's going on. Like I know that I'm a robot.
Eli's really activated and he's like, I can't believe that they, would do this and and I would never do that to you. He says something to Patrick.
If you, of course, were.
If you were a robot. And then Patrick's like, I know I'm a robot. Because this was actually my favorite detail of the movie. He was an older model of these companion robots, and Eli loved him so much that he never traded him in. He just like kept him as the old fashioned model that he was. And later,
he's so old and ugly looking. Like
what an idiot robot!
I couldn't like Lucas like every one of his like. I was like, he looks unreal. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue. His teeth. I couldn't stop looking at his teeth. I'm not much of a teeth man, but I was like those pearly white teeth.
You asked me if they were veneers, and I went on my veneer soapbox because I really am afraid of veneers.
So it was like, imagine. No matter how beautiful your smile is, there are needles under those teeth.
Nubs.
Oh, no.
Nubs. If I ever have to get them for some reason, it's terrifying to me that you would take them off and you're just like smiling like a...
I have one tooth that's like yellowish. I kind of want to get it. They told me that the only option was to make it a veneer.
But that's like...
For one tooth.
One
nub.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Especially because it's like a
This is my one friend. He has one nub.
Because also like in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
If your teeth fell off, veneers fell off, that's what you would look like.
Yeah.
A monster.
You have a nub cap.
I can't.
There's a limit.
When I think about this, it really disturbs me. That this is like, I feel like this is like when you learn about what people used to do for like beauty in like ancient Egypt.
In China when they'd curl up their feet.
Yeah, things like that where like people thought it was beautiful so they did it and it makes sense. But I'm like, oh, we definitely do shit like that. And it's the veneers and other things.
Nice. Teeth are nice.
But they're not teeth. They're fake.
And they're also more like teeth are stronger than veneers could ever be. That kind of creeps me out. You guys, I had a dream 2 nights ago. I was very stressed out. Basically, I've taken on multiple jobs and I have a lot of anxiety about it.
You're doing a great job. And then we have this job.
With this job. We're volunteering for ourselves.
We love to volunteer. We only do it for our own good.
Humanitarians. And I had a nightmare where my teeth, they were like sticking forward. And I was like, they're not supposed to be like that. And I like touched them, they fell out. And I was like over a sink and one of them fell in the sink. I was like trying to scoop it up. And then it was one of those nightmares where I then like woke up from my dream and I came downstairs and I was telling Allison how scary it was. But the more I was talking to her, the more like I realized like Allison was like really disheveled. Like it sounds like you had like dust in your hair. I was like,
do you think it's connected to that time I had the dusty cough? Like your brain remembers that? I had a cough that sounded dusty once. It was a long time ago, but.
And it lasted for a long time.
Yeah, but I haven't. Okay, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to tempt fate. Never mind.
You haven't gotten sick?
In a long time, so. Anyway, back to
Companion.
I've never, P.S., we've talked about teeth for a long time now, but I must, as you know, close
never had a cavity.
every loop. No, I had never had a cavity for like 25 years, and then I had 3, but I kind of suspected it was a lie. You know what I mean? And they were like, oh, we need to fill these cavities. And I was like, oh. And I forget, she just said a bunch of stuff that didn't make sense to me. And my teeth never hurt. I don't know. I don't know if I believe it. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. That was not what I was going to say about teeth. What I was going to say about teeth was that I've never had one of those dreams about your teeth falling out. And they're apparently super common.
Oh. It's always to do with like control, I think. I thought
Should I look it
was.
up?
Teeth falling out nightmare is horrible, but worse for me is I'll have elevator nightmares where I get into an elevator and I realize it's like out of control. It's like I can't get off on the floor, but then when it does stop on the floor, I'm worried when I like leave, it's gonna like drop and like chop me in half.
That's terrifying.
It's all a matter of control. And
it does say control when I look this up.
Yeah.
But I haven't had it in so long, so I'm kind of hoping I never have it again. But I always have this dream where usually I'm driving. I could be a passenger, but mostly I'm driving. And there's a big bend in the road. And for some reason, the car, like, I'm like, I know it's going to happen every time. Like, I can't turn it. And so it goes shooting into the river. And I have a big fear of that happening one day and drowning in a car. So,
well, I had a double dream. I told you my teeth dream, what preceded that is I was in the Sacred Heart parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like in a truck. And it was like, I was like trying to like go forward, but like every like instinct, it was like wrong. And it's like, I'd press on the gas, but it would like go in reverse. I'd press the brake and it would put me in drive, and it was like all like floating, and I was like worried I was gonna like bump into a car, but like somehow I'd like not at the same. I was stressed. But
I feel stressed just talking about this.
Companion.
Back to
so
companion.
Eli and Patrick's like, come on, like I know that I'm a robot, and then they have a really lovely scene about
love
and Patrick describing how it feels like his insides are.
He said, so basically what I took away from this moment is like, and this might be a good moment to talk about the queer element of it, but Eli's kind of like, you know what, fuck it, I do love a robot. And then the Patrick is like, I can feel love. Like their love is very true in contrast to the heteronormative robot and female robot and male companion. And Eli's like, what does love feel like? What does your love for me feel like to Patrick? And Patrick's like, you know, I can't talk about things like that. He's like, we'll just try. And he says, it feels like I'm in pain. Like my insides are on fire and full of anger and light,
which
I think.
Seems kind of dark.
I loved it. I loved the line. I loved the language, but I knew the second he said this, I was like, okay, so at some point in time, when we're unsure of this robot's humanity, he's going to be reminded of these words, and we will reveal how human he really is deep down inside. And sure enough, that is that is what happened. But I still appreciate the language and the dialogue. Yeah.
I also loved like Lucas Gage was so much more. He's like was really sincere in this movie, whereas I feel like all his other roles, he's always like a dick.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it was like really refreshing to just see him like genuine.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there was an article about the queer representation in this movie in Pride magazine, and basically Eli, the actor who plays Eli, Harvey Gillian. I should know how to pronounce
Harvey
that.
Gillian.
Guion. Oh, I guess it's Guion. I'm so sorry. Once again, I mispronounced something. I just know that sometimes people just hear that. That's all they can hear, and then they won't
are
listen.
they? Or is that just a you thing? Because I don't hear it.
But the quote he gave to Pride was really cool. He said, Harvey Guion said, I do feel like their love, as in Patrick and Eli's love, in the story is probably the most organic. It was nice to see this queer couple and not the way that we see a lot of in queer media being represented in queer communities that don't look like a cookie cutter. It ends up being the most organic love out of all these stories, which is really lovely to play. At the time, it was very meta for me because I was very madly in love when we shot this. And you were as well, he says to Gage, who nods in agreement. So we were feeding off of what we were coming from, like weekend getaways from our significant others and coming to set and working with each other and bringing that love to the scene. So I think it now lives on forever in this film. It's been captured when which we are so lucky that we filmed it then and not now. So I guess they're not in love anymore. Not two of them together, but they were in love when they filmed that. So like the scenes were outpouring with the love they were feeling for their real partners in life. And now they're not dating them, I don't think, anymore.
Both people are no longer dating their partners.
Well, it says at the end here.
Well, I know Lucas Gage was married to the hairdresser. I told you about that. They got divorced.
Right. Well, yeah, they both seem to have split. That was actually not the quote I was hoping for. So my bad. I wanted to focus on the director's quote.
Oh.
And the director, whose name we haven't said, is Drew Hancock, I believe. Yes, Drew Hancock. And he specifically said to Pride, in this first act of this movie, I wanted to lure people into a sense of something that is very familiar. You're presented with all these genre tropes, and you make your judgment, and then something happens and it twists. Suddenly, no, this is not what you expected. This is not the movie you expected. So for the beginning, it was very important for me to fill it with the gay couple that could just easily be there and just be the comic relief on the side. But no, actually, their love for each other is way stronger. It's like the only real love story within the movie. What do you think about that? Because it is like a robot, right? So it's, I mean, that's inherent. Loving a robot is kind of queer.
Gay people are so superficial that they need
a robot
to fit all their desires.
And gay people. Well, I also just thought it did kind of do the bury your gays thing. Because, spoiler alert, Eli's the second man down. And they use that love, the grief, the grief that Patrick feels to allow him to be manipulated by Jack.
Which is another queer element.
Yes. They then have Jack take over Eli. He picks up Patrick's remote, resets him, and has him love link with Patrick, which led to a delightful scene.
But before we do that, I forget how it comes about, but maybe it's when Eli and Patrick are talking separately. They then visually show the meet cute that they had, where you see it. And Lucas Gage is dressed up as a vampire. And then he's like dipping his carrot into hummus. And then he steps on the dinosaur's tail. The dinosaur's like, you're stepping on my tail. And then Lucas is like, what? And then he like pulls off the mask, like, you're stepping on my tail. And they like fall in love.
Like, they have googly eyes.
And then they dance like, I
loved it.
And it was like so like cheesy, but like hilarious. And now Eli's dead. And then there's something, it's called like a love link that you do with the companion is when you turn them on is you like stare into you're like within the vicinity of them and you make eye contact and then you choose like a meet cute that they can do. So like Jack, when he had first met Iris, he selected that they met in a grocery store. That was their meet cute. And so now it repeats the same meet cute that Eli and Patrick had, but instead this time with Josh.
It was hilarious.
And it was just like hilarious to go through those beats again.
And it also delighted me because when I saw the full trailer, they included the scene of Jack Quaid taking off the dinosaur head. And I was like,
how does this fit?
What?
In this movie?
Like it just didn't seem like the same movie. So it was very fun to kind of realize where it came from. But yeah, that's a queer element too, that then there's sort of this, it just kind of shows that Jack really is a person who just uses objects as tools to get what he wants, and he doesn't care about love at all.
Which, I mean, are they tools or are they humans?
Right. So did you want me to answer the question of, do I think it's wrong to have a robot be your partner without their consent?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on if what consciousness is. But I do kind of think it's like, if it's just, I don't know, it kind of goes back to like a sex doll or something like that. Like, do you think that's bad?
No, because they don't have
feelings.
Yeah,
I think it's wrong. I guess I do. If something has, if anything, a creature of any kind or machine has feelings or has been programmed to feel as if they have feelings, I do think it's wrong.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And that's something about a lot of the criticism of the movie that I read. I mean, and by criticism, I mean reviews. They were like, oh, it's so inventive. Because I guess when Drew Hancock sat down to write this during the pandemic, he wanted to write kind of more of a Megan-like movie where Sophie Thatcher's robot was like a killer robot. And then he just felt like, he was like, oh, I'm kind of relating to her showing up at this party and not knowing anybody. I'm kind of in her shoes. And he switched it, which I think is great. But they were acting like that was so inventive. I pulled some quotes that just make me like feel a little confused by that. Like, okay, fascinating and unexpected spin on the AI anxiety that is steadily growing as the tech advances and looms ever larger in our day-to-day lives. This is from the same Pride article. AI is a thing. It can be used for evil. It can be used for good. And it's all up to how we use it because it is a tool like social networking, like Instagram, Facebook. There are some characters, this is the director, there are some characters that treat it well, some characters that treat it poorly, just about the future. It's just what about this future is probably going to happen. What would it look like? I don't know. I just don't feel like that's that inventive. Like, I mean, isn't that Westworld? Like, isn't that a very common trope in robot movies?
Yeah. I don't know. There's still something that felt unique about this to look at it from a new...
I just don't think it's that... Like, even Ex Machina, I felt a lot of sympathy for...
Yeah. I feel like a lot of movies you have sympathy for the robot.
Yeah.
I guess it was just like... I don't know.
Because not that I'm saying I enjoyed it. It was really fun. I just don't know if it's as inventive. I mean, I guess right now the AI narrative is very like, oh, AI is bad. And then he's pointing out like it's actually just depends on how you treat it, which is a very worthy point to be made. But I just don't know if that's like 100%.
Do you think they used AI or like the generative AI to make Sophie Thatcher speak German? Like, I wonder how good her German was. Or if there were, because, in The Brutalist.
To perfect the accent? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Like, they're saying it's back, so they could have hired people that can actually speak the language to dub them.
I agree with that. Also, the craft of learning something. That's the thing I don't think AI is bad. I think it's a tool. But I was reading something about, I think it was an Armchair Expert episode, which I didn't listen to, but they had an AI expert on there. And she was like, kids will never have to write essays again, apparently was something that she said.
No.
And I was like, that is not a good thing.
Humans need to be able to critically think.
It's important. Same with like, it's something, it's worthy to try and learn a new language. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be awful if we never have to try for anything ever again. That sounds like not a good idea or fulfilling for life. Like, not, is everything just supposed to be easy all the time and productive? No.
Let's turn off these cameras and start watching TV. What are we doing?
Yeah. I don't know.
So yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Oh. No, you do. You're not doing
right.
it. Yes. That one.
I don't know when I use that though. When do I employ it?
It's when someone says something, for example, usually me, say something that like doesn't quite line up in the direction that you were going for, and then you need to do a hard segue to something else. That's when you utilize. But
you always interpret all you find you're so good at identifying these characteristics that people, these manners that people have, but then I feel like you always interpret them in such a negative way. How do you know that that's what it's for? How could it maybe it's like positive?
It's more like you don't really know. Like I say something that's like not quite tied and it doesn't really quite make sense, and then you just need a segue. You're like, all right. I don't even know I don't even know what that inflection that is. It's like a British.
It is a little British. It is.
All right.
Cheerio.
You're though. That's
that I understand, but it isn't necessarily. It's more like before I rush in with my critique.
But your critique is usually negative.
Let me
it's a little entree
it over. Let me think about what I want to say here. Okay, so we kind of got through the beginning, set up that Patrick is a robot, a true love of Eli. But then they find Sophie, and then unfortunately Eli dies.
Eli has a hilarious line.
What was it?
Something where he says he's like an ally, like a robot ally.
Oh yeah, he was like, "This isn't personal. I have to do this, but I am an ally," or something like that.
And then, I mean, sadly, but know it's coming. Is he like rolls on top of Iris? They're fighting for the gun, and then Iris shoots him through the chest.
Yeah, and then Patrick's devastated. Jack turns Patrick to his side. This is after Sophie has stolen the car, which is also robotically operated.
Well, she runs off. Before she even like killed Eli, she has the tablet. And she turns up her intelligence to 100%, which I want to ask you about that. She was at 40%.
Yeah,
and seemed to be very emotionally intelligent and very in tune. I'd actually say, what was that movie with Scarlett Johansson where it's like we only use 30% of our brains.
I never saw it, but I know what you're talking about.
Lucy. That's what it was. I never saw it either. But that trailer cracks me up, which came out like 11 years ago. And so it's just like funny. Like, so if like Iris turns up her intelligence to 100%, I was like, oh my God, like this is going to be crazy. And then it's just like her like standing on a rock, like overlooking the forest. And she's kind of like thinking of different scenarios, but it's like, I feel like 40% intelligence Iris also would have thought of these. They were just like very generic, like.
Well, and the spectrum explanation that they gave was like 0% is like an automaton and 100% is like an Ivy League graduate. And I was like, movie. You do know that like some people are legacies. Some people are good athletes. Some people are good at math. Some people are emotionally intelligent. Some people are beautiful artists. Like, I don't know if you really understand the spectrum of intelligence. But it was just fun to imagine.
It was like fun to imagine, but then they didn't quite deliver on like
except when
like I thought she was going to be making like crazy stuff in the forest. Like now I'm able to construct a bow and arrow and murder. I don't know what was going to happen. But she's like, if I go home, Josh might stab me. I was like, okay, yeah.
I hitchhike. The man might be frightened by my blood on my shirt.
So one of the elements of the tablet is she's able to like change her voice, and you just because she changed her eye color, you're just like, oh, these are like fun things. She changes like the language she can speak. So that you think these are kind of like throwaway lines, and obviously it's a movie, so they put them in there for a purpose. But yeah, she goes and kills Eli. She's kind of forced to kill Eli. Then she gets into Jack's car that is voice activated. And Josh chases Iris to the car, and then Iris is like, car, go home. Car, and it's not recognizing her voice. It will only respond to, the car is not responding to Iris's voice. It's only responding to Josh's voice. And then.
Have a question about this.
Yeah.
I know she's meant to be passive, a passive robot, but she's been dating Josh this whole time, and she's never tried to drive the car. Like he's never given her voice access to drive the car, and she never questioned it. So she really was under his thumb. Anyway, continue. Bless you.
Can robots sneeze?
No, they cannot. Well, I don't know. We probably programmed them to do whatever you want.
So Iris is able to use her, with some trial and error, is able to mimic Josh's voice through the tablet. Yeah. Josh starts smashing the window, trying to get in. But then she finally succeeds in saying, car, go home. It reverses, starts driving away.
I don't believe that would have worked either. But that's okay.
I mean, it would have taken a lot of trial and error to like be able to get to exact someone's timbre in their voice. But she succeeds. She's going off. And then, there's also another funny thing in the movie where Sergey, the code to his like vault is
Stalin's birthday. That was hilarious.
And then
so apparently it's his password for everything.
This is password for everything.
Trying to unlock his phone.
So then Josh finds Sergey's phone and he's like, it's Stalin's birthday. He's like, wait, what's Stalin's birthday? And then he pulls out a book about Stalin.
He finds his biography on the
shelf.
That was hilarious.
And then he's able to call in the car as stolen.
Yeah, and so then the car shuts down, which was clever. But
and
then
Iris is working for hours, well, maybe minutes, trying to break out of the car. And she's distracted, doesn't realize an officer pulls up.
This is the smartest thing I think that she did.
And she changes it so she speaks German.
Because
she can't lie.
She can't lie, but she can speak another language, and then the officer will understand. So that was very clever. Meanwhile, Jack Quaid's character has turned Patrick's aggression up to 100, which clearly is a horrible idea. And this means that he turns up, beats the cop to a pummel, gets Sophie Thatcher back, drives home. She's sort of tied up, and then Kat's like, this is, stupid and ridiculous. Now we have another body here. I'm taking my cut of the money and going. And this is another part of the movie where it kind of lost me. Like, I feel like she was an interesting character to some extent, and then she's trying to leave, and Jack Quaid's like, stop her, Patrick. And then Patrick just goes up. He's cooking again. Goes up with his kitchen knife and like stabs her in the back.
Because they forgot to move his aggression back down
to normal. And it's very disturbing. And then she I did like when she was like, Jack tries to like talk to her and she's like, don't talk to me. I'm fucking dying here. And then she goes and sits down in the chair and like,
I kind of liked
the window.
I liked the death. Scene. It was like disturbing how she just kind of like looked out
and said it was gonna rain
at the sky and like lie on the couch. She just kind of accepted her fate.
Yeah.
I thought it was really smart.
It was like a beautiful moment, but it just made me sad. I was like, this is so bleak. And yeah, so basically from there, I would say then it's Jack just making bad decisions. he ties her up. He tries to force her to kill herself, succeeds, but he doesn't realize.
Well, it goes back to the first teaser where Iris says, I forget how it comes about, but he's like, so you can feel pain, like you think you're human or something like that. And he has her put her hand over a candle and it's like torture, like it's like slowly like burning her arm. He's turned her intelligence down to 0%.
Which just makes her unable to like make any decisions on her own.
And then he has her point the gun to her head. And then a really dramatic close up in slow motion, she shoots through her head. And as like the bolt's like going through, you can like see the like light of the bullet, like the flames that are on the bullet. Like you can see them kind of like behind her eyes, and her eyes go white like when she goes to sleep. And the bullet comes out the other side. And I was like, oh my.
It was really dramatic. I mean, it was really, there were like some cool shots for sure.
Yeah. The robot company comes to pick up Iris, that she's like a malfunctioned robot.
And then it's like obvious.
Really obvious. And then Patrick is dressed up as the cop that, we didn't talk about.
I did mention the cop very briefly.
Being murdered.
Yeah, I said he pummeled him.
And so, it was really intense.
Pummeled.
So now Patrick's wearing the officer uniform and the guys haul Iris back to the car.
But they tell Jack, like, but don't worry. We got her footage in her, it's not in her brain. It's stored
in her womb.
Yeah.
Basically is what they pointed to.
That is what they said, which is kind of fun. And then they're like, and then they go outside and they say something funny where they're like, he's like, that's weird that she acted that way. What do you think was going on? He's like, he obviously tampered with her. He obviously hacked into her. And it was kind of funny. He's like, he's fucked. I was like, this is hilarious. And then they get in the car.
Patrick's there, shoots the driver.
But one of them, Teddy gets away. He was very sweet. You wanted him to live. You were rooting for him.
And then Iris like wakes up. Patrick's chasing Teddy through the woods. And then Iris has like
it's kind of like a cow prottle that is electric.
It was a taser. But it was like on a longer stick. It was a distance taser. And she like walks up and does it like in front of Patrick. And at first I was like, oh, she's just showing off her little taser. And then Patrick had to explain, which was probably like a producer note. It's like, you can't hurt me because your factory reset.
Yes.
It's a little more gracefully in the movie. But I was like,
but then as I predicted, she reminded him that she's like, Jack is manipulating you. Eli, you love Eli. Let me repeat back to you the words of your love. And he goes, what is that?
Which, by the way, Iris had earlier. When Eli and Patrick were saying everything, and Patrick said how he could feel his love for Eli and he felt like he was on fire, Iris had been like within earshot, hiding behind a tree from them.
So she heard it.
So she knew to repeat the lines. And then Patrick's like, you're right. And then he grabbed.
No, it was actually it was even better. Yeah. But I have questions about what he does.
Yeah. Did he need to do what he did?
No.
Did he need to do what he did?
Did he do what he did?
Did he do what he does? Did he do?
Did he do what he did? Did he do what he did? Did he do? Did he do what he? I don't even know what I do. It's so perfect. Did he do what he did? What he did? What he did? Did he do what he did? Did he do?
Did he need to do what he did? What he did? Okay. What are we talking about?
So Patrick says to Iris when she explains this, "You're lying," and then you kind of get the payoff. She's like, "But Patrick, I can't lie," and he's like, "Shit." And he sees the body of Eli because they have a really shallow grave they've dug for all the bodies. It's right by the driveway. I don't really understand their thought process.
Quickly, Patrick had remembered that Iris was reset. That's why she could kill him.
Yeah.
So then why did he immediately forget that she can't also lie?
It was too upsetting of a truth to hear. And then he takes the the taser, and he kills himself with it. Which
he like sticks it in his mouth, which we now understand is not.
But it clearly does shut them off.
Okay.
That makes me feel better. He could have come back to life. You're right. Yeah, I guess I understand because the whole idea that they are so programmed to be so in love with their companion that is their reason for everything and anything. But then Sophie's character is able to move past it. So I was like thinking that at some point in the time in the movie, the two robots were going to end up speaking to one another much sooner and team up. And it would be like an Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
But it'd be queer. But it'd be, like, I kind of wanted to see that.
Yeah. I also thought something of that nature was going to happen too.
Earlier when you asked me what twist I would have added, that's the twist I would have added.
Oh yeah. At lunch at our feast, I asked Allison.
I was too hungry to think of anything. I was like, I don't know. Where's my banh mi? That's what I would have wanted. An Adam and Eve robot, even though they both are a little queer, and they run off into the world together with all that money and live happily ever after. That would have been great. But instead, Sophie, Teddy thanks her for saving his life. She says, now I need your help. Then we're back with Jack, and Jack's packing up all the money.
Which is like, you didn't go outside to make sure that they follow through.
Jack makes really stupid decisions. The whole movie, he's dumb.
And then he's like, hey, babe, is everything working out? And then what do you think is Patrick's voice, but it's really Teddy's voice? Or is it?
I guess that was a new trick that basically Teddy, they like kind of withhold what he does for her, but I feel like it kind of just made it more confusing. Basically, he gave her complete control over herself so she can basically do anything, it seems like. And so including mimicking other voices. So then he thinks it's Patrick. That's really...
And lying.
I did love that line. She's like, she's like, I will be really sad to see you go, or something like that. She's like, and that's my first lie. It's like, yay for lying. But yeah, then they have this confrontation scene. And it was interesting because Sophie has a gun. It's loaded. But he's very confident that she won't shoot him, which I was like, oh, why are you being so confident? But,
well, he also said, we both know that gun's not loaded.
But then she shoots it behind the wall, and it is.
She's like,
loaded.
I found more bullets. Where were they?
I know. Well, she's just 100% intelligent now, so she can find anything. You know those Ivy League grads? They know where all
the bullets are.
Okay, and so
she does not shoot. She hesitates.
No. And
then Josh is able to jump her.
Yeah. Well, he says to her, you love me. You had to come back for more. You just can't get enough of me. Like, I own you. I'm your everything.
Which he's just like really stupid.
I know.
He doesn't understand what's going on.
He should have taken the moment of hesitation to flee because she is much stronger. And then, okay, I have questions about one. It's an interesting way. It's a metaphor clearly for like domestic violence, how a lot of victims of domestic violence will go back to their abusers. So I appreciate the gesture toward that. But I also felt like she had already gone on her journey, and I feel like she hated this man, and I didn't really believe that she wouldn't have shot him. And then two, she's a killer robot who's probably turned all her settings up 100%. I know men are supposedly stronger than women, but I was like, not than robots.
Yeah.
Like, she should have easily been able to overpower him.
She did shoot herself through the head, so give her a break.
That's true. She's a little injured. All right.
Which the injury didn't really seem to affect her at all. I know it was only...
Well, they did patch her up in the car, I think, a little bit.
Oh.
Because, like, her brain wasn't broke. Like, she had...
Well, she has so much hair, you just couldn't really see
That's
where...
true, I guess.
She'd been shot through the head. Like, centrally shot through her head.
And yeah, and then as we said, she ends up killing him with an electric wine opener and told him to go to sleep, Josh.
I couldn't
And then
look.
she gets the money. She takes the fancy car. The dialogue from the beginning, voiceover.
The credit starts playing.
Where she says, but my favorite scene of the whole movie was actually her in the shower. And so her burned hand is like very disturbing to behold. And she looks at it and starts to peel off the like fake skin.
It was very much, I was getting straight up Ex Machina vibes. Like I wanted the song to play from Ex Machina. Da, na, 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 da, na, na. Do you remember that song?
No.
From Ex Machina.
I love that movie, but I don't remember.
So she peels off her hand. She has like her like robot hand.
Sick.
And then she's getting dressed. Like she has like her robot hand on. And then the credits start. And then, yeah, the narration happens at the beginning of the movie, where she says.
This is what she says. Do you remember?
Some people like experience happiness one time in their life, or the greatest happiness ever. And then
it was something like a day you feel like you are fully born into being or something like that.
And for me, it happened twice. The first time is when I met Josh for the first time. And the second time was the day I killed him. Which
she repeats, which I mean, it's a good metaphor again for the idea of like women are taught that love, especially with a man, is like that's how your life starts. That's what gives it meaning. And that's how that robot was programmed. But at the end, she's striking out on her own. And so it's a good metaphor, a good feminist
memory
metaphor, even if it's a little like been there, seen that before. I've seen this film before, and I think I know the ending. Whatever. That's another story. Sorry, I'm going all over the place right now.
Yeah,
am I malfunctioning? I'm malfunctioning.
Beep boop. That's her nickname.
I loved that. Every time he called her beep boop, I was like, you asshole, you call her beep boop? And then
so the credits start.
Yes.
And this always cracks me up when they do this in movies. It's like everyone's like getting up and leaving.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to get up and leave too, but we were also with like other friends, and I always forget we go with a variety of friends. Some people have to stay for the entire credits. And
Are they like that?
They're not.
Okay,
They're willing to leave. But I couldn't remember at the time, so we were just kind of like sitting there for a second. But there were flashes to Iris driving in a car in a Mustang, and so we just kind of like hung out there. But it's funny because then like everyone in the aisles that were leaving, they all like stop. They're like in the aisles like watching, and mostly because there's a scene where then Iris like looks out to another car, and there's another Iris robot
with an old man,
car.
and she looks at her and she sees her robot-y hand and is like horrified, and then Iris smiles. But what I found hilarious about this moment in the theater was that you were deep in conversation with our friend, and I was like, "You want to watch this? Look what's going on! Look!" And you guys were like, "What? And I was like, "Look!"
And then, fun facts you were telling us is that
yes,
Sophie Thatcher is a twin in real life.
she's an identical twin.
Which then I asked, I was like, well, do you think that's her sister in the movie? You're like, I hadn't thought of that.
I don't think it was, actually. I reflected.
That'd be fun to have her identical twin.
It would be, but maybe she doesn't like the screen. I don't know. But I do love Sophie Thatcher. I think she is a very unique performer.
Yeah. And this is our second time talking about a movie with her in it on the podcast. Maxine.
Actually, it's the third time.
I mean, did we have a Yellow Jackets episode?
No.
Are you saying there will be a third time?
No, well, it'll be a fourth time, but we watched a movie with her in it, and we talked about it on the podcast.
Let me figure this out. Let me get to the bottom of this.
She's the queen of horror. Wait. Say, think I'm trying. I'll turn your intelligence up.
I was going to make that joke.
100%.
Wait, she's the queen of horror?
She's always in horror films. We've watched many horror films. There's Maxine. And there's...
Trap?
No, we liked...
We just did it?
We liked this movie.
Oh, Heretic.
Bing, 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 bing.
I forgot we did Heretic.
Yeah, well, I didn't forget because
you remembered. Well, that was our discussion on Companion.
See.
Sorry, I accidentally momentarily I changed your setting to speaking Spanish.
No entiendo. ¿Por qué estás haciendo eso a mí?
All right, English.
I attempted to say, why are you doing this to me? But I don't know if I succeeded.
Thank you so much for listening. This is Queer Cinema Catchup, the podcast.
I just really enjoy it.
I don't think you've ever done a thumbs up before.
Really? Am I not
on
up?
the camera?
Oh. I think I've maybe done.
This is Queer Cinema Catchup.
I'm Allison.
It's a queer symbol.
Is it?
No.
It's a Roman symbol, like, and apparently it was actually a false thing in the Colosseum. Never mind. I'll tell you off camera.
I turned on your Roman history button.
It's probably not very accurate. So we need to go back to the factory on that one.
All right. Please subscribe. Continue listening. Tell your friends. Tell your family.
Tell your companion robots.
Yeah. Any companion robots that want to listen, and we'd love to have you on as a guest.
Yeah. We'd love to be the first podcast to interview a companion robot. That would be so great.
I literally can't read your expression right now.
I just like the silliness of that idea is killing me.
Queer Cinema Catchup, known for having the first companion robot on as a guest. Would their companion have to be here too? Would they allow it?
Depends on, are they more of an Eli or more of a Jack, Or
Josh.
You know how I hate getting names wrong.
Should we end this thing?
I think so, or we lose our minds.
What do we say? Queer Cinema Catchup, go to sleep. Are you okay?